If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel for more content. The link is in the description.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
They are among the most powerful weapons developed by man. They have the collective power to end all life on Earth within minutes. Some say it's no coincidence that UFOs were reported prior to and during the first A-bomb tests, or that they are said to have interfered with and somehow shut down these strategic assets during some of the most dangerous times on planet Earth. On May 17, 2022, during a congressional briefing on UAPs, when questioned about one such breach in national security, a Pentagon spokesperson denied knowledge of such incidents, stating simply there was not enough resources to follow up on such leads. In this episode, we examine some of the most startling declassified examples of UFOs and nukes. Is something probing our weaknesses? Or, as some UFO contactees claim, could it be a warning sent to us from someone else about the dangers of using such weapons? Is it the eve of our destruction, or as some believe, our salvation? Join us as we try to understand the links between UFOs and nukes in this episode of Wild and Weird Radio.
Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. We are glad you are with us. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and if you're looking us up on Instagram, there's been a painful new update. So if you're wanting to keep up with the Instagram, there's now another section you have to go and click to say you're going to follow us. Otherwise, Lord knows where we'll show up. But go ahead, head over to the YouTube, hit the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell. That way, every time new content comes up, you're going to be alerted. And what do you say we dive into the news?
Head first.
So, we've got a very boring news week for you this week.
Literally, it is an extremely boring news week this week, and it worked out really well because we don't have an extremely boring topic this week. So
that's right. So we've got a very, very good episode for you guys tonight, but we're gonna hit the news first. We've got the most recent, I think, is this new iron. They're calling it ring.
The iron ring, 30.
It was found in a stone. Honestly, it looks like something you would like moor a ship
mooring.
to.
It looks like a mooring ring, right?
It does.
That's what it looks like
just
to me.
like a mooring ring, but it's out in the middle of landlocked.
But according to this thing is 30 million years old. It's in an area where apparently it shouldn't be. It's in the Bosnian mountains, and we have a link to the story over on the talk group page. So go over there and read that because it's kind of long. There's having a little bit of a discussion over there about it right now too. Actually, right now I'm watching the discussion, which is really funny. So yeah, get involved in the discussion. Maybe we can figure out what it is because I don't think anyone knows what it is, but I don't think it's aliens.
The big problem with testing iron is it's really difficult to test because it takes carbon to like make it workable. And anything that takes carbon to be workable, it's almost impossible to do carbon dating on because it's just going to show as old can be. Now, obviously, there's a ship mooring there, or there's some kind of mooring, or a anchoring ring of some sort. And it is way out of place. Really interesting. We'd like to hear your take on it, guys.
It was the tie-offs for ancient rock climbers.
So. It probably was, Jess.
Yeah.
The anchor points for them. So
ancient alien rock climbers.
Ancient alien rock climbers.
Or even some kind of ancient elevator system.
Hey, I believe that. Yeah.
Like a rock and pulley, and you just drop the rock and pray to God you don't get catapulted to the moon.
Yeah, maybe. But 30 million years, probably not. Anyway, the next
Hey, you know, spaceships could have moored to it.
spaceships, moorings. Yeah, that's what it was.
You know,
yeah.
they just come in and like, we got to tie
That's
off
probably
the.
where they tied off those Nazca balloons, man.
Hey, you know, that's probably is where they tied off all the
what I'm
Nazca
thinking.
balloons. That's right.
That's what I'm
We
thinking.
need to go check Peru to see if we can find similar formations because
Oh,
they
they're
can
there.
tie it
They're
all
there.
together right there.
You know they're there. So the next one was there was some more UAP footage. Wow, surprise, surprise, surprise! Released this week. So actually, there was two UAP things
Yeah.
released this week that were pretty high profile. One was from a 2021 incident on the USS Kearsarge, where they observed these two massive UAPs, UFOs, call them what you want. There were 40, I think there were 40-foot spheres of light that were traveling behind the ship 200 feet off the water and going in a maneuver. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you about that. I mean, other than that's a crazy story and it's a developing story. So it doesn't sound like to me at this point, and probably like the rest of you guys, this just it's not news anymore.
Right.
This is like kind of
Is this becoming old hat now?
Yeah, it's like unless you've got an actual video of it, it's just a story to me, right?
Just boring now, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. And then there was the other one, which was by the debrief. And boy, they are catching some flack over this because a lot of the experts are telling them this is nothing more than birds. You go watch it. You make up your own mind. We've got people over there telling us it's drones, by the way, right now. Joe, you can tell us why it's not drones really quick, because this was over a area where we did have Apache attack helicopter. This was taken from the Apache
Right.
seat, actually, the gunner's seat, right? So you can tell us why that's not a drone, or three drones, I should say, that were spotted really quick.
Well, the quickest way for one is that drones nowadays are all trackable. You cannot fly in the sky with your own piloting device and the FAA not know where you are. It's just impossible.
Right. So could it be one of our assets that we don't know about?
No, it absolutely won't be one of our assets that we know about because these training routes are planned far in advance. They're coordinated with joint forces, so we don't have any kind of incidents, because an incident with an Apache is an incident with human lives.
That's right.
They don't end well.
That's right.
And we put millions of dollars behind every soldier who's trained. Their training costs millions and millions of dollars, not to mention the hardware assets. We're not going to risk that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was actually addressed in the UAP, the brief, the hearing.
Round. Yeah.
Right. It was actually addressed in the hearing. And it was the exact same thing you just said, basically.
Yeah.
And there's no way to kind of circumvent that tracking technology. Like, because I know that each drone has its own signature that's the new FAA regulations is that each drone has its own signature. You can track it down to who's flying it, who owns it. But there's no way to circumvent that, like a jailbreak for the drone or anything like that.
Well, the problem is you can jailbreak it, but it turns into a paperweight.
Okay, so it works out at that point. Okay.
If it doesn't get the green light from the FAA that you're in a clear flight zone,
yeah,
then it won't engage the engines. It's part of the OS, so it's not. It's actually not a beacon or a signal. The OS reaches out, targets the FAA system. The FAA system.
Regardless, I mean, I get this, and I think everyone does. But what we need to understand is this was in a military zone.
Right.
They're not going to let you fly a DJI Phantom in there anything that you made in your garage. Let's be real.
Yeah, it's almost going to hit an invisible wall. Like, say you take off in a green zone,
right,
and you fly into this zone. It's like it's going to hit an invisible wall, and your unit just will not go beyond that parameter. So, and if you do try to jailbreak it, these systems will only, like, I guess if you built your own, if you built your own from scratch, which is dude.
It wouldn't matter. They can take them down, and you know they will. I mean,
well, yeah, they can take them down easy. As soon as they show up on the system, the FAA can see it.
Exactly.
And they can still send out something for it.
Yeah, that's the whole thing in the Kearsarge report. Go look at that. They're actually talking about why these weren't drones, because they actually had, the drone buster technology there on board, and it had zero effect on these things. So yeah, our bases are safe from anything like that. You're just not going to get that. If someone's doing that, then it's way more than someone with a jailbroken drone.
Yeah. Okay.
That was my point on it anyway.
No,
Because a lot of people do
you're
think that.
right.
They do believe that, though. You're right, Jess. A lot of people think that, and people think whatever but there's so much technology that is being thrown at these things, whatever UAPs are, and they can't stop them.
Yeah.
And just for our listeners, if you're a new listener, Ron's actually been flying drones since they put engines on paper airplanes, and I'm former military, and so these are both coming from like really, really way back experience that both of us have in dealing with this kind of an equipment.
Well, there were no regulations when I started. So.
Yeah, there weren't any. Like it was Katie bar the door. You do whatever you wanted, and that is, I guess, why we have regulations now, is because people were doing dumb stuff.
Really dumb stuff. Well,
I've been involved in a tragic drone crash that occurred on top of a mountain in North Georgia.
Oh, no.
Our drone is still up in a tree somewhere. So that's about as far as we got with the drone technology. So I don't know a lot about them, but we're looking to get into getting a DJI eventually, because I love those shots that you can get a bird's eye view when we do Sasquatch research, to get a bird's eye view of the terrain and kind of look around, and then eventually hopefully go into thermal and that. So, but yeah, I'm fascinated by drones and flying them and stuff like that. We were terrible when we first started out.
It was easy to be terrible too. I mean, now it's almost like you can just take them out of the box and
they fly themselves.
Yeah. So it's gotten way easier, and it's also gotten way easier for, like I said, counter electronics to take them out of the skies. And we can't do that, but they can do it. So,
Big Daddy G can knock it out of the sky.
That's right, brother. Absolutely. Last bit of news. What we got, Joseph?
Oh, we are going to be next week, for you guys listening, June the 11th. Ron and I will be speaking at the Wytheville UFO Festival. It's going to be a big time in Wytheville, Virginia. Lots of guest speakers. Awesome vendors are going to be set up. We can't wait. It's going to be a blast. Come out if you're in the area or within a few hours driving time. Come check it out. Come say hi. And one last little side note. One of my wife's friends from college actually sent her a message earlier today and was asking if I was an anchor on a podcast. And he named which podcast it was. And she said, yep, that's him. And he said he's a big fan of the show, loves everything we do. So big shout out to Paul Keith Kinder. Thanks for listening to the show. We appreciate all the support and all the listens every one of you put in, week week out. So if you want us to rattle you off on the air, submit a review. Send us an email.
Yeah.
We'll read it out.
And, do that. The thing that we were doing back in the day, we were trying to get you guys to, make a little voice memo and tell us you're listening to us. We'll throw you on the air. We don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Time to dive in, guys. This is
all right. So that's the end of the news.
So we did a special report a couple weeks back covering a congressional debrief on the UFO topic, and it was the very first...
They're called UAPs, Joe. Don't you know?
Oh yeah, the UAPs. Sorry. Got to get up to times and up to speed with the terminology.
Yeah.
This was the first time, though, in 50 years that there had been a public hearing with Congress. So that's a huge milestone. Now, there was a lot of revelatory information that was given out, and some say that there were no notable public shift from an old policy that had been repeated for ages. But, ultimately, we declared for the first time in a public platform that anyone can go listen to. It's all over YouTube. It's all over these news sites. You can just scroll back and look, where they stated that UFOs represented a direct threat to the United States security. For 50 years prior to that date, it had been the exact opposite, that there was absolutely no threat being posed to U.S. national security. However, we had a change in pace over the last few years, and it was publicly addressed a couple weeks back.
Yeah, it was May 17th. And we actually did a special report on May 18th.
Yep.
You, me, and Dave. And we went over some of those highlights. And one of the best highlights of the whole thing, oh, man, that was from the clip about 55 minutes in or something like that.
Yeah.
And we'll play that for you right now.
It's also been reported that there have been UAP observed and interacting with and flying over sensitive military facilities, particularly, and not just ranges, but some facilities housing our strategic nuclear forces. One such incident allegedly occurred at Maelstrom Air Force Base, in which 10 of our nuclear ICBMs were rendered inoperable. At the same time, a glowing red orb was observed overhead. I'm not commenting on the accuracy of this. I'm simply asking you whether you're aware of it and whether you have any comment on the accuracy of that report.
Let me pass that to Mr. Bray. You've been looking at UAPs over the last 3 years.
That data is not within the holdings of the UAP task force.
Okay, but are you aware of the report, or that the data exists somewhere?
I have heard stories. I have not seen the official data on that.
So you've just seen informal stories, no official assessment that you've done or exists within DoD that you're aware of regarding the Maelstrom incident?
All I can speak to is what's within my cognizance of the UAP task force, and we have not looked at that incident.
Well, I would say, it's a pretty high-profile incident. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but that's out there in the ether. You're the guys investigating it. I mean, who else is doing it?
If something was officially brought to our attention, we would look at it. There are many things that are out there in the ether that aren't officially brought to our attention.
So how would it have to be officially brought to your attention? I'm bringing it to your attention.
Sure.
This is pretty official.
Sure. So we'll go back and take a look at it, but generally there is some authoritative figure that says there is an incident that occurred. We'd like you to look at this. But in terms of just tracking what may be in the media that says that something occurred at this time, at this place, there are probably a lot of leads that we would have to follow up on. I don't think we have resource to do that right now.
Well, I don't claim to be an authoritative figure, but for what it's worth, I would like you to look into it. And
Sure.
if for no other reason, you could dismiss it and say this is not worth wasting resources on.
Will do. Yeah.
All right, so Jesse, what did you think of this clip right off? Because Ron and I have both seen it and we've talked about it, but I don't think we've talked to you about what we thought or what you thought about the video prior to now.
I think it's really funny because they say that it was not presented, researching or looking into the Maelstrom incident was not a thing that they did, even though it's a very famous incident. Yeah. It's like we're the government, we've got our best men on it, but they're not doing anything that's just very apparent, It's like they don't take the first step, the more famous incidents that everybody knows about, that even amateur people who are into the subject know about. And you're like, I'm sorry, what was that? No, I've heard hearsay about it. It's like, well, what are you guys actually looking into? What incidents are you actually looking into? So it's again with the government, and we've got the best men on it,
Oh,
yeah. Well, the National Press Club conference in 2010, it was brought up there.
Yeah.
And they were wanting them to have these hearings. There's 150 witnesses that they could have brought forward, but
they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give them the time of day on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. So, Joe, you want to run down the Maelstrom incident, or what do you think? Because, people heard that and they're like, probably right over their heads, a few of them anyway.
So what happened with the Maelstrom incident? Maelstrom, the base at Maelstrom is a nuclear facility, meaning that it is not necessarily manufacturing nuclear weapons, but it is a storehouse for nuclear weapons and is also one of the launch facilities. So there are silos built into the ground there. Now, what happened at Maelstrom was that suddenly we lost all control over our nuclear capabilities. Everything was shut down. There was nothing that we could do to turn it back on. There was nothing that we could do to defend ourselves at any cost. The complete shutdown and restart of a system did not solve anything. It wasn't until these objects that were witnessed coming in from one of the towers disappeared, that we regained any kind of control over our nuclear capabilities.
Yeah, and pretty much that's what it was, because there was actually 2 incidents at Maelstrom.
Yeah.
The first incident was on March 16th, and that was Captain Eric Carlson and First Lieutenant Walt Fiegel. They were also, I believe, at the press conference, the original press conference.
The original.
Yes. And basically what had happened there was we had seen, they had seen the UFO, or they did not see it. They were in the launch control facility underground. But security above ground called them, and we've seen these strange lights. They're hovering over the main gate. And of course, Fiegel's like, yeah, okay. He dismisses it, but he later says he should never have dismissed it. The guy calls back again in a panic. These things are over top of the base. And all of a sudden, every missile in there starts going, not every missile, but 10 missiles in their flight went to a no-go situation. And the thing about these missiles, guys, these aren't just like little nukes. These aren't, these little tactical nukes. These are ICBMs. These were
They're
Minuteman ones.
intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Yeah. These were the first ones that could hit the Soviet Union within 30 minutes. Before it was 12 hours, to get there with a bomber. These things were the first ones. So they were vital link in our first nuclear shield. Each one of those things had 800 kilotons nuclear warhead in them, by the way. They were shut down. And like you said, they did not come back up. See, a lot of people heard this story years ago and they thought, well, they just shut them down. I even thought that. But no, they actually were offline for over 24 hours. Now, again, the next incident takes place a week later. And this one is the one that most people hear about because Salas has been on a lot of stuff. He's been on Ancient Aliens and whatnot. He's been on a lot of stuff talking about this. But that's Robert Salas. And almost the exact same thing. This time they call, the guys above ground call it, these lights are zigzagging across the sky, stopping on a dime, making all these weird maneuvers. He ignores it at first. And then all of a sudden, the same exact thing happens. The moral of the story is probably if your security guards call freaked out, you shouldn't ignore them.
Right, because our military police are trained very well. They are trained to respond to practically every kind of encounter that they could have at the gate, because they are the first line of defense on any military base, whether it is U.S. Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy. They all have MPs that are stationed at the gate, and they are tough cookies, to say the least. They can't handle anything that's thrown their way, and they're trained to respond to any threat.
Exactly. And they're guarding a SAC base, a Strategic Air Command base.
Yes. So
in the height of the Cold War.
These guys are some of the toughest of the tough in the military, because they've got to be able to guard and give security to those bases. So with that said, if they're calling and they're saying, sir, we have unidentified lights in the sky that we can't do anything about, send a red flag straight up the pole.
Yeah. But it almost seems like as soon as, that call came in, everything started going down. He said those missiles went offline in succession, one after the other, in just a matter of seconds. And the crazy thing about it is, with Salas, he was debriefed, and then he was taken, and he had to sign an NDA, which he did. And he said it bothered him for the rest of his career, for 20-some years.
Yeah.
And then he decided to come out and come forward with it, because I guess everybody else was. The age of disclosure had begun, right?
Yep.
But what's really crazy about this was not the first time. And we've even talked about this. We brought this up in our little talk we did at Flatwoods there, that it's not just nuclear facilities. It's places that actually manufacture. It's the components for these things. We even brought this up in the documentary that was done by Small Town Monsters, Dark Skies. We did. That's correct. These lights in the sky seem to be often spotted around these facilities where weapons of mass destruction are developed, components are built, or where they're stored. Or
So
restored.
so there's a lot of like people talk about incidents where they have incidents where they see UFOs hovering over power lines and other
Yes.
sources of energy. And it seems like they were sapping energy from power lines. Do you think that this is some sort of energy drain that they're seeking, or do you think that they're testing out our nuclear capabilities, kind of prodding the system and see where the vulnerabilities lie? Or is it a warning to humanity to cease this kind of activity?
That is an amazing question. And, Solace would say yes, absolutely, that it was a warning that they don't want us messing with, with these powers. But here's the thing. I don't think they're pulling anything off of it, because there's instances that we'll go into here in a bit. You'll see the thing about these missiles, the most amazing thing about these missiles was they were not damaged.
No.
These missiles were not damaged in any way. The power was not lost. What happened was their targeting system, I believe, is what it was, right? That was messed up.
It was targeting and ignition. Like they couldn't get them to respond, but targeting was also out.
I believe it was the targeting systems. I'll have to check that for sure. But I do know that in some cases, these things have been actually reprogrammed. The target codes have been changed. These are in different cases. So at least that's what they say. I mean, I can't say 100% this is true, guys. This is just coming off the wires. These guys have been silent for years, and they're coming out and saying, hey, this is what happened. Yeah, I do believe that they do pull some energy from like power grids and whatnot, but I don't think that these nuclear incursions have anything to do with that at all.
Well, the whole power line theory, it treads water, essentially based off of Nikola Tesla's technology that he had designed, where
he sent electricity through the air.
Yeah, where you could just pull electricity out of the air, and if there is a source of electricity on the lines, and what they would use it for, or maybe even just getting close enough to detect it, who knows? But the fact that they're flying over these manufacturing facilities, if we go back into a previous episode where we talked about the visitor at the Pentagon, and we start looking at some of these contact experiences specifically when we're dealing with Valiant Thor. He came and he spoke to the U.S. government, and he's warned us about the use of these weapons, and that we needed to put them away, we needed to not use them, we needed to pursue peace and focus our efforts in other directions. It's that was also it's this echoing thing that you see when you listen to all these other contactees as well. When they hear you talk about their experiences, and they're talking about what was said to them about humanity and what we need to do. And then again with Valiant Thor and allegedly this alien visitor that came and was put up at the Pentagon, and he was given the same message, just peace, love, harmony. Don't keep up this whole nuclear war. Don't keep making weapons that can destroy your planet, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot of speculation. It really is. And there are people who are like, well, that's all just secondhand kind of stories and whatnot. Well, maybe, but here's what isn't. And this is a facts. These are facts that we'll deal with at this point. They were seen over Los Alamos. They were seen over Oak Ridge. 1948, 1950, Oak Ridge. 1952, Hanford AEC, Savannah River AEC, and Los Alamos production. August 1965, the Warren Air Force Base near Cheyenne, Wyoming. March 67th, Minot Air Force Base. That was near Los Alamos, right? Yeah. In Maelstrom. 1968, Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. August 1980, Warren Air Force Base, Sandia Labs, Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico. December 1980, Bentwaters, that's a famous one. October 1991, Chernobyl, yep, Ukraine, and whatever. I can't even say the name. It's a missile base in Russia, and that it was a pretty scary one too, from what I recall. But the thing is, those are not hearsay. See, these are actual documented cases that were eventually declassified, and they're there. What I'm telling you guys is they're declassified. If they're declassified, how in the world did they not have that knowledge when they were asked, do you know about the Maelstrom Incident? My answer would have been yes, and we know about Minot, and we know about, and just went down the list.
Instead of saying that we weren't officially asked to look into Maelstrom, like the guy actually responded.
But you're just assuming that they want any sort of truth to get out, or this is just going through the motions of, all right, we had the hearing, it's over. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. We looked into some things. It's pay no attention to the man behind the curtain at this point.
Yep.
So you're just, that's not going to come up. But the Ellsworth incident, there was an incident in the 80s. And there's actually a show that just came out called Alien Endgame, where they interview a gentleman who was actually abducted. He saw the floating sphere above the launch site, and he recounts being abducted because a few years later they put him under hypnosis, and he talks about being abducted by 3 beings. 2 were smaller and 1 was larger, and he described them basically as the tall whites and the alien grays. And it's a pretty cool watch. But in that incident, the nuclear warheads were completely disarmed as well, just like the incident in Montana.
Mm-hmm. That's right. We see instances like this all across the board, guys. There's the report from New York Post. I'll link to that. That was, I believe, the September 14th, 1964. There was a incident at Big Sur where they were supposedly taking, I guess, some video of this nuke test, launch test that they were doing, and allegedly this UFO zips into scene and disables the dummy warhead that's on this thing, and it tumbles into the ocean, and more non-disclosure, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the same thing that we hear time and time and again. And you think, and we do hear this, we hear people say, oh, well, they don't want us to use nukes. Maybe that is true. I mean, but they've gone a lot farther than just 10 nukes offline. There are instances where, up to 50 of them were taken offline. So they stepped up their game.
Not just taken offline, but in Russia, they were turned on. That's right. They were armed, and it caused Russia to scramble, saying, look, our equipment is online. We have no control over it. We are not launching missiles. We have lost control of our system.
Yeah.
And they were trying to avert global war and this is Russia, okay? Russia is like poker face all the time. They're not going to talk about nothing. But when you have them saying, look, we are not trying to attack you. We are not trying to start global war. But all of our systems are red hot and we can't turn them off.
So is this is this one of the first incidents of an intergalactic false flag?
Pretty much.
It was reported to George Knapp. I know that it was one of the witnesses that he had talked to, and it was October 4th, 1987 is when it's supposed to have taken place. And it's basically dozens of soldiers working in a nuclear base in Ukraine saw up to 5 UFOs during the sighting. The missiles enabled, and the witness stated that the launch codes appeared on all of the screens, meaning that the missiles were enabled. Dozens of officers witnessed this right before the countdown to the launch ended. The UFO sped away and everything just stopped, went back to normal. To me, that's a message.
It's a display of power is what it is. That's what it says
exactly
to me.
What that is.
It's like if we wanted to wipe you all out right now, we could.
Yeah. So we have to remember where we are in time, okay? So during the the 60s, this is about a few years after the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we really sat there and decided we're going to kill each other, right? Something happened and we didn't, but either way, they said, let's show them what we can do. So they took off our missiles offline, and they kept doing that over and over again, right? And then it was in I guess the 1980s, right? Early 80s, that was the one instance where the 50 of them went offline. And then 87, we have the Russian incident, which was insane because now they're saying not only can we take them offline, we can fire these things. We can take complete control of your most powerful systems
and have the codes.
Yeah.
These
and
are
rewrite
codes
the
that need to
codes.
be entered manually.
Yep.
These aren't codes that like because you got to remember, this is in the 80s. Nobody's carrying around thumb drives as a key.
Yep.
It was, you have to enter in these codes manually. Suddenly all the codes appear on screen, red hot, ready to rock and roll. Let's tear this planet to shreds.
Yep.
Nothing happens.
Yep. And then the last one that I could find was the Warren incident. That was at Warren Air Force Base in 2010. And that's interesting in that it's owned because that was said that President Obama was briefed this morning on a power failure at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming. It took out 50 nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles. No mention of a UAP, but I just have my suspicions based on the number that was taken down compared to the numbers of some of these other reports. So yeah, guys, there's some stuff going on out there. I mean, there's some stuff going on. And you know what's funny? It's not just the U.S. You know, we said that there's Russia, Bentwaters, one of the most famous ones.
Yeah, Bentwaters.
I mean, that is one of the most famous ones. And I found this little bit, and I thought this was great. One of the most famous incidents of the whole topic is Bentwaters. And Nick Pope related that in the 1980s incident near two Royal Air Force bases in Suffolk, England, dubbed Britain's Roswell. You can go watch that too. It's very good. When U.S. Air Force personnel reported seeing strange metallic objects hovering in Rendlesham Forest near RAF Woodbridge, it's claimed that the UK's best-known UFO sighting, the Rendlesham Forest incident, involved the shutdown of nukes, Mr. Pope told the outlet. Now, pay attention to this part.
And this is in the 80s.
Because of the Official Secrets Act, I can neither confirm nor deny that any nuclear weapons were stored at Royal Air Force Bentwaters or RAF Woodbridge, but I'm aware of claims from personnel stationed at these two bases involved in the Rendlesham Forest affairs. Basically, he cannot confirm nor deny. Now, I remember when this happened, and this is the first time I've actually seen anyone say there were actually nuclear weapons on the actual base, because this thing fired a beam into the weapons storage area is what it was called, but they never said, 100%. Yeah, exactly. And I've never seen a mention of a shutdown.
And the interesting thing with Nick Pope had a background. He was the intelligence UFO guy for Britain's military for ages. But the interesting thing that every time he tells this story, if you watch his body language, he says, "I can neither confirm nor deny." Just nods his head through the whole thing. When he's telling making that little statement.
There's a, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Oh, I was looking over this. I'm looking over some Black Vault stuff. Have you seen about that incident in Serbia where all these humanoid creatures came out of a UFO after somebody fired a surface-to-air missile at the UFO?
No, but I want to hear it.
Yeah,
okay.
Tell me about this one.
This is from the Black Vault. I was just kind of going over some Black Vault stuff, and I don't know if they were doing any sort of nuclear testing there or anything like that. It says that in the report that it was just a routine training exercise was being conducted. But according to the KGB materials, a quiet, low-flying spaceship in the shape of a saucer appeared above a military unit that somebody unexpectedly launched a surface-to-air missile and hit the UFO. It fell to Earth not far away, and 5 short humanoids with large heads and large black eyes emerged from it. It's stated in the testimonies by the 2 soldiers who remained alive that after freeing themselves from the debris, the aliens came close together and then merged into a single object that acquired a spherical shape. That object began to buzz and hiss sharply, and then became brilliant white. In a few seconds, the spheres grew much bigger and exploded by flaring up with an extremely bright light. At that very instant, 23 soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into ... stone poles. Only 2 soldiers who stood in the shade and were less exposed to the luminous explosion survived.
So
So
basically, the pillar of salt thing.
That's what I heard.
yes, the light somehow turned them into what they described as stone poles.
How
Well,
about that one?
That, yeah,
There is phenomena that takes place with exposure to, these extreme detonations that will leave these remnants of, I guess, people that do. They don't look like statues.
yeah.
They would look like more of a post that's just standing there made of minerals at that point. So I mean, it's plausible. It's very plausible. It's a very interesting story. And the funny thing is, going back to Sodom and Gomorrah, one of the reasons that historically that Sodom and Gomorrah happened wasn't necessarily because of
Aliens?
people in town being evil, so to speak, or just hating religion and whatnot. It was because they tried to rape the angels.
You don't want
And-
to do that. That's bad. Don't you do that.
When you try to rape angels, I guess this is when they detonate a massive explosion. So don't shoot these land-air missiles, and don't try to rape them.
Well, I mean, that's how you get Nephilim. So maybe that's why, we were trying to avoid the whole angel rape thing, is we're trying to avoid the whole
Right.
Nephilim thing. You see, it all
Right.
comes back to the Nephilim host mothers, okay?
It does. It all comes back. It circles back around. We're right back
This is
here.
bizarre. Truly bizarre. But I don't know what to say about that. I really don't. That's interesting. Those are the kind of cases and reports that just make you scratch your head and say, what are we dealing with? Because we're talking about something, guys, that can not only affect 50 nukes, 10 nukes, 100, whatever. Can go in individually and turn them on and off. I don't know if any of you guys have been watching the whole Skinwalker Ranch thing, but the last episode was phenomenal. Anyone who did see it knows what I'm talking about here. But there was an incident where they were pointing the actual telescopes. They had people come in, astronomy, like a club, basically come in, and they were trying to see if there was any kind of diffraction of light over this central part of the ranch. Like if there was a gravitational anomaly, right? Like if the lights were bent. The funny thing is, when these guys would try to put their telescopes onto the target stars that they were trying to line them up with, those stars would disappear in the database. So
Interesting.
every single one, every time that they tried to slew the telescope to the star, it disappeared in the handheld database. Now, those databases are not hooked to any wired system. They're in this. I've got one. My telescope actually has one of these on it, and all you do is you line up your telescope with a guide star, a couple of guide stars. Now the telescope knows where it's at in space. You hit these buttons, and it'll slew to whatever you want to see. It would slew anywhere beyond where this one spot in the sky was. It would not go there. And every time that they tried to put a telescope into that area, it would disappear off the system. So this is the same kind of thing that we're seeing. Like, how can something interact with our technology to the level that it almost seems like magic? And it really does. It almost seems like magic, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, we've talked about the whole magic and technology thing many times
Same
before.
thing.
It's the same thing. It's just magic is just technology we don't understand yet.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I found a really cool incident from 2013, and this was in Iran. 2013 would have been an interesting year for that too, if you remember correctly. The whole "we're watching you," thing. They were developing their nukes at the time, right?
Yep.
So in 2013, The story is a Combat Aircraft Magazine, reported by whoever. The Iranians believe the object were spy drones belonging to the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. Imagine that. Sent to sniff out Tehran's suspected atomic weapons program. But they attributed to these alleged unmanned aerial vehicles flight characteristics and capabilities far beyond what any known drone can achieve. These UAV could jam radar, disrupt interceptors' navigation systems. They flew outside the atmosphere at speeds of up to Mach 10. They could hover. Flying at night, they emitted a telltale blue light that led to their nickname, luminous objects. In several cases, F-14s faced them but were unable to operate their armament systems properly. One Tomcat took off to intercept a luminous object on January 26, 2012, actually, is what this one was from, mysteriously exploded. So these things had been around for some time. They were saying, it got too close and it got shot down. They're thinking these were U.S. drones. At least that's the international story. But here's the thing. They were trying to say they were the Predator or Sentinel drones. Well, the Predator or Sentinel drones, they don't glow blue, and they don't do any of this stuff. You can talk to this, right? You can speak on this.
The basically everything up until at that point in time, that technology would have been hush hush about being able to jam and knock out communications and things like that. We did have that, but now the world knows about it. However, where it did go outside of capabilities is pursuit of Mach 10. Currently, we don't have anything that can come close to that. Still, to like modern day, we still can't reach that. And we also can't escape the atmosphere at those speeds, because that will just result in, well, I mean, you guys saw what happened with, the Challenger. So going back to they don't have a blue light glow to them, so they're not luminous objects. Now, so when we're talking about these blue lights, we're now back into orbs here.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the blue glowing orbs.
We've got the blue glowing orbs. And we've got the big orange orbs that are over the bases.
Yep. So that's more or less what we're looking at. So yeah, we wouldn't have had drones that could have done all of that. Now, the first half, yeah, we totally could have done that at that point in time.
Sure.
We had that technology early as I believe it was 2006, 2007, somewhere in that ballpark. However, we couldn't have done the Mach 10 flight leaving the atmosphere or glow. I mean, I guess we could glow blue, but it wouldn't have done those last few things.
Yeah. And, just when we're getting down to these things, we're talking about these objects, but they're not just, coming in and slowing down. They're stopping. And then they're starting and they're stopping and they're zigzagging all over the place.
So there's these things called G-force.
Yeah.
You can't just suddenly stop like that. Nothing can stop like that. Whether it has a pilot inside or not. If there was a pilot inside, those kind of maneuvers would basically turn them into jello. However, even if they weren't piloted, there's still nothing that could do this that is subject to Newtonian physics. Because an object in motion wants to stay in motion. You can't just go and suddenly stop. That doesn't make sense. Now, you can go and make a abrupt stop, but there's still like this kind of sway motion to it. Like you're stop and you go beyond that and then come back. Even like if you're flying a drone. So if you're flying a drone at Mach Jesus and you say, I want it to stop right here, it's going to stop right there. The targeting system will stop it right there, but inertia will cause it to continue moving forward, sometimes a few yards. And at these speeds, it could probably be at several hundred feet, but then it would return back to the stop point. And they're not just going to come in and stop on a dime.
It's not going to happen.
Possible.
Yeah, this stuff, we can't do this. I mean, and anyone who thinks that we can do this.
You have a bridge to sell them?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see the proof. I want to see the technology. Oh, but wait, we have these patents. Here's the thing, guys. I can patent anything.
Yep.
With enough money, I can patent anything. Okay. That doesn't mean I can build it. That just means I can patent it. That
Well,
means that if you build it, I can sue you. But
yeah.
it doesn't mean that I can build it necessarily.
A lot of these patents, they're actually made by people who they don't have the means to actually produce the product. So they'll make a patent solely to make money by A, selling the patent, or B, suing you when you make a product like their patent.
Like a time machine.
Like a time machine, exactly. Just like a time machine. It's a good callback to last week, man.
It is. If you haven't watched it, you can go back and watch that.
So let's dive back into old Valiant Thor and some of the other contactees real quick. Just before we start to wrap things up here, because I want to get some of this info out. To me, it's really part of the.
You've always liked the Valiant Thor
I have.
story. I mean,
I really
you have always liked the Valiant.
Can you tell he mentions it like literally every 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Right?
Have you guys heard of Valiant Thor?
Yeah, it's almost like me and the Indrid Cold story. He likes the Valiant Thor story. So
it's a really okay. So
why do you like it? Does it make you like have a little bit of hope for humanity, maybe, or
a little bit? Yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
It fades real quick as soon as I get back on Facebook. But
sure. Social media will do that to you. Yes.
Yeah, but Valiant Thor is one of the few cases that we can actually confirm with real documentation, and I'm a data-centric guy. Now, whether Valiant Thor came from another planet, we don't know. But we do know there was a gentleman who stayed at the Pentagon. We have record of him. The Pentagon, that room was leased out to a guy. And he directly communicated with the president, Joint Chiefs of Staff, all kinds of stuff. Made parlay with, agreements for technology if you quit using weapons. All kinds of different stuff like that. Like we have some of that stuff on physical record that you can go prove, and then there's other parts of the story that you can't. So if you can prove part of it, then odds are there's a bulk of the other unconfirmable portions that are probably loosely based in reality or complete reality, one of the two. So that's one reason I really enjoy that one. So looking at Valiant Thor and the claims that he was concerned for humans and nuclear weapons and the use of those nuclear weapons and what kind of effects it has, because nuclear weapons are extremely destructive, right? We know this. We've seen the results in the aftermath of nuclear explosions. We've seen the results in aftermath of reactor meltdowns. Those are we know what they are. We know what can happen. Beyond the destructive capabilities, radiation also has a massive impact on human DNA. It causes a breakdown at our DNA level that causes cancer, mutations, all kinds of stuff. Immediately up front, you've got radiation poisoning. But then down the line, you have mutations in the genetics. For example, when we look at amphibians, they're the easiest. They're the first ones to start showing true signs. You'll get a whole mess of limbs. You'll have a frog that'll look like Cthulhu, but it's all legs and arms. You'll get these mutations that will inhibit the creature's ability to function, but not its ability to live. Now, going back to last week's episode again, what if these beings are coming from our future and they can no longer reproduce? They need us to quit nuking ourselves or exposing ourselves to radiation to stop the mutation in our genetics that could keep us viable subjects.
Maybe.
Or if we nuke ourselves into oblivion, then that changes the timeline to
Where's
where
their
they
host
don't
mother?
exist at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the funny thing about that is, you will hear people say this: the modern UFO era didn't begin until the 1940s, and coincidentally enough, yeah. And according to Jacques Vallée, there were UFOs sighted over the Trinity site during the tests, before the tests, and after the test, there was a crash. So I don't know, guys. And we also know that Roswell occurred. Where was it at? It was near a what? It was near a
White Sands, right?
yeah, it was near
Yeah.
an atomic air wing.
Yep.
So, this is the thing to remember is that these things do, for whatever reason, I don't know, but they do seem to definitely have this ability to hone in on the areas where we are making these things, storing these things, or preparing to use these things.
Yeah.
I thought one of the more shocking things was as I was doing this research was I came across a recent news story just from the 11th of March on NBC News, where UFO believers believe that there can't be a nuclear war. By the way, just to let you guys know that the aliens are just going to not let it happen. They believe this.
Well, it's because of the information that we've been doling out in this episode. It is what happens when that information turns into a belief system.
Okay, Joe. I mean, I'm with you on this. I can totally get behind it. My question is what this episode was about. How can people who are responsible for the defense of this nation not be briefed on something like this when you have that many people who are now actively saying, no, there can't be a nuclear war ever again because the aliens won't allow it? As fringe as that may sound, you think that you might want to look into that. Just, I'll kind of surmise what Gallagher said, if for no other reason than just to find out if it was, worth it or not.
Yeah.
So I don't know, guys. I think that it's a very, very relevant topic. I've been wanting to do this one for a very long time. So much so that when we wanted to do this, there wasn't a whole lot of coverage about it.
Yeah, there wasn't. So we didn't know how well the episode would really go over at that point.
Yeah. And now you can literally find a little bit of it everywhere. The book, UFOs and Nukes. Ancient Aliens did a wonderful episode on the same subject. And I got a feeling we're going to hear a lot more about this very, very soon. You just can't hide this kind of stuff. I don't think that you can. I think that you can try to hide it, but I don't think that you can. And what's really funny is this is the kind of thing that a lot of abductees, contactees have been saying for years. They all have the similar types of stories. They've all reported, seeing sometimes this destruction of the planet. They've been warned allegedly of these things, and at the same time that they've been warned, apparently their missiles been shut down. I mean, so what are we to do with that? What are we to do with that? And it almost makes you. What did Stanton always say? He always said, he kind of thought that maybe they just didn't want us taking our brand of friendship out there to them. He may be right.
Friendship.
Our friendship, because we're not the friendliest on the block. Let's be real. It's kind of like I always said before. The monkeys are playing with fire, and maybe they're getting ready to get stomped out because there's a treaty that says you can't do that. I mean, we don't know. I mean, there could be.
Well, when to put this in sci-fi terms, I always, when watching Star Trek, viewed the humans as this altruistic version of us that we wish we could be, while the Klingons were the real humans.
No, that's good. That's good.
That's the way I always saw it.
That's good, actually. That's
I
can see that.
Because that is how I think we would very much behave currently if we were a spacefaring people.
Well, you brought up Star Trek. The latest one that's on right now, by the way, a fantastic show. The very first pilot episode does actually touch on this, and it is just a phenomenal thing to see. And it basically says, kind of like what we were talking about, the warning thing, right? That they were being contacted by. We may be being contacted by someone who has experienced this in the past, and they don't want to see that happen to us. It could happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice to think, I guess, like these other guys do, that someone out there has our back as far as, aliens go. Nick Pope says no one's going to stop us. If we push the button, then that's it. The game over. There's no running away. Eva destruction kind of thing. But there's these other people who are like, yeah, the aliens, they let you do that. You can't do that. So I don't know. It's kind of cool to think that maybe, just maybe. But then I'm like, no, they don't give a crap. They'll just start all over from scratch. They've done it before. They'll do it again.
So, before we round out here, what is everybody's take on all of this? Like, we've got the data. The data is there. It's real. It's not speculation at this point. But what do you guys think is going on?
I think, per usual, that the government knows a lot more than they're sharing with us, which is, a given at any point in time. But I don't have enough trust in this alien society that they're going to save us at any point in time, especially with some of the stories that come out from abductees or contactees about how sterile and they're not empathetic and they're not caring. It would have to be something. It would have to be, in my mind, if they were to stop nuclear war and stop the self-destruction of humanity, it would be for their own purposes.
Yeah.
And not some concerned, not concerned for our well-being in any type of way. Because most contactees, when they're contactees and abductees, when they talk about these beings, they're a lot of them are not kind or caring in any kind of way. It's very threatening. It's very scary. So I do not trust the government and do not trust the aliens. That's it.
Well, there are more than one group of aliens, Jess, and some of them you can trust. But the thing about it is, I think that the government is doing exactly what you or me would do if we were put in this situation. I can see both sides of this story. That's the thing. I can see it from their point of view. If this is truly an unknown, if we are talking about things that can outfly us, outmaneuver us, outthink us, put thoughts in our heads, take us through walls, just stuff that's magic, again, to us, we can't stop that. There's nothing that we can do to stop that. And do you really think that it would be wise to say, look, guys, this is how it's going to be. We've got these weapons of mass destruction. We can blow this planet up 24,000 times. We can kill every single thing on this planet, just like that. We can't stop whatever this is that's here. We can't stop whatever this might be that's coming. That's a very scary thing to me. With all of the abilities that we have, with the firepower that we may have at our disposal, yet it says we can't stop these. Yeah, that's not a very comforting thing. That doesn't make you sleep well at night, So I can kind of understand why you would put that behind closed doors and talk about it there. What I can't understand is why you didn't at least just humor them and say, we're aware of that. Next question.
Yeah. My take, I think, is that it's a lot in line with what Jesse was saying, is that I do not trust what they're telling us. I don't trust that they don't know more than what they're letting on. Obviously they do. They're having these secret meetings as well as the public meetings. So there's more data being shared behind closed doors than is being revealed to the public. Secondly, we have this lack of control when exposed to whatever these lights are in the sky. Our equipment doesn't work. It seems to be a global issue, not just United States, not just Russia. This seems to be a global issue. If there is something coming, we are outclassed unless we have a super soaker and then we just spray them with water and they dissolve into acid. That's what M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong taught me, so I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, what a twist.
Right. And but we've got all of this technology, all of this resources, and not a bit of it amounts to anything. We're like a giant space anthill, and we just need to, cross our fingers.
Yeah.
And hope that whatever is going to happen is not the thing of science fiction horror, but more along the science fiction hope genre. Because when we have our government that is acknowledging that there's something there now, it hasn't done that ever.
75
the
years.
Investigations that they kept from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're acknowledging it. And you've always said there was a timeline that you've like, as long as I've known you, literally, it's in way longer than we've had the podcast. As long as I've known you, you've always said there's a timeline.
Yeah.
And the timeline's getting shorter. And I'm curious as to what it's going to look like. I really am. That's my take on it. I don't know how to take it, honestly, other than the fact that we are painfully outmatched, and it seems as if currently there is nothing that we're able to do.
No,
Well, this was fun and positive, everybody.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to sign myself up now for the host mother program. And that way I might survive.
Men can't get pregnant, so there you go. Congratulations on your alien baby.
I mean, maybe they can just splice my DNA or something and make test tube Joes.
No, Joe, it's the old-fashioned way. You didn't know that?
No. They haven't figured that out yet, Joe.
They've got all this technology, but they like the classics.
Yeah. Good going, buddy. I'm glad you took one for the team.
All
there.
right.
Hey, he said he's signing up, so go for it,
Yeah,
Jim.
he did.
God bless. God bless.
All right, Jesse, take us home.
All right, guys. Well, this was a bummer of an episode. Listen, we're all gonna die because the aliens are gonna come. They're gonna turn off our defenses. They're just gonna turn Joe into an alien host mother, father person of some sort. Thank you for joining us for this, and hopefully this is not the last time we sign off. Hopefully we don't have some sort of nuclear explosion due to our alien friends coming back and turning our technology against us. So, again, thank you for watching Wild and Weird Radio. You can check out our other episodes on YouTube or your podcast aggregator. Make sure if you listen to it in a podcast aggregator, you download the episode. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you tell us down below in the comments what you think is going on with the whole alien, UFO, UAP, nuclear connection, what your theories and thoughts are, because we're always interested in having that discussion. You can join us over at Facebook. We have a little group where everybody kind of shares news stories and has conversations. Or you can always find everything Wild and Weird at wildandweirdwv.com. You can check out my work on YouTube, and the channel is Hellbent Holler, so it's YouTube/Hellbent Holler. You can find me on Instagram at Hellbent Jesse. You can find Ron at Lanham Ron. You can find Joe at Skinwalker Sculpts and kind of see what we're doing in our day-to-day lives and what little projects we're up to right now. I actually got over my 5,000 subscribers, so thank you to everybody who subscribed to Hellbent Holler and has been watching all of my videos. I appreciate each and every one of you. So, guys, you got anything else to say?
Remember, Instagram hates us all, and they've made it even harder to follow and subscribe to everybody. You now have to hit another button. Who wants to hit another button? I don't, but if you don't, I'm going to forge your name onto the alien host mother list.
See?
Stay wild and weird, everybody.
I'm shutting this thing down
This
like
is
the
fraud.
aliens.
Fraud!